Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a video for you about ray tracing in video games and why that matters to you. The game I'm playing right now is Battlefield 5, and I'm showing off one of the easier examples of ray tracing with the reflections on the black cars in the map Rotterdam. You can see as I walk up to it, I can actually see my own character reflecting off of the bent surface of the car, and as I climb on top and do things, you can see the reflections of my guns, you can see the reflections of the artsy flag installations around, and just reflections for days. So throughout the course of this video, we're going to talk about why these simple reflections matter and how they might impact your gameplay. So today we're going to talk about the graphical horsepower required to do those sort of physical calculations and why it matters to you. We have a longer intro segment than usual for today's video, so check the timestamp on the screen if you want to skip straight to the ray tracing explanation, but if not, we're going to cut to a little bit of real life or Ultra RTX on for just a moment so that I can show off this gift I got from NVIDIA. They sent me a gigantic Battlefield 4 replica medical crate, and if you haven't already noticed, this video is sponsored by NVIDIA. They sent me this gift in exchange for talking about ray tracing, and I get to unbox this live for you right now, and there are some real goodies inside. We have Battlefield branding, RTX, DICA. We got fake grass on the top. Let's go ahead and remove the fake grass. We got Welcome to the Battlefield, which is a copy of Battlefield. So this copy is going to be available for you guys. It's actually hidden in a part in this video, so keep watching and you'll see it pop up on screen. First come, first serve. Let's get to the big boy. Let's get to what you really want to see. This is my NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Ti. Oh, it's so big. It's so huge. Time to finally unbox the 2080 Ti and step into the latest, greatest generation of graphics with the most powerful GPU on the market. Wow, this is a big one. Oh, wow, that is incredibly heavy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a beautiful, beautiful GPU. Nice stainless brush steel. We are going to take out our old GPU. If I can get a hand on the little... Now we should be ready to take out the old GPU. Oh, what a heavy girl. So here's my good old 1080 Ti. It has served me well for a very long time. And now it is time to put the new 2080 Ti in and get a little ray tracing going on. So I'm going to very gently slide this in. Oops. I say as I bang around all of my components. Gotta get it angled properly. That's usually an important start. There we go. Nice and smooth. And RTX is now enabled. I gotta put in the PSU cables and a few little screws to make sure that everything holds in place, and we'll be back to gaming in no time. Ray tracing can look really complicated if you look up descriptions online, but the simple version of it is that ray tracing is a method of simulating realistic lighting and graphics by simulating light rays and reflective surfaces. That's kind of a mouthful, but think about it this way. Most video games that you've played currently are using graphical techniques that kind of simulate the effects of lighting on objects in a simplified manner. There aren't a lot of truly reflective objects in the game, and those that are reflective are often specially coded to be reflective instead of it just being a natural property, which is why in most video games when you run up to mirrors and panes of glass and water surfaces, they don't reflect your character or very much else around them. Sometimes there'll be like a still image or like a static reflection or a simple XY flip, but most of the time it's just going to be a muted property. Similarly, lighting in video games is usually as simple as light emitted from one source hits X thing and it makes X thing Y color, and that's it. That's the end of the interaction. Light ray hits the thing, color changes. Ray tracing, by comparison, is a much more complex set of physics equations and simulations that simulate real light rays hitting an object and diffusing or bouncing off or distorting more like they would in real life. The reflections and lighting that happen as a natural result of this physical process is much more realistic looking, instead of the sort of close as we can get computationally simple simulation that most video games are using. On top of this, and uniquely, you can have various light interactions that occur with each other that wouldn't be possible with other graphical techniques, such as if I were to shine a flashlight on a red car and the light were to reflect off of that car, it would reflect as a different color and go hit some other object and change that object's color comparatively. Whereas in a regular video game, I would shine my light on the car and it would turn the car a little brighter where the light hit, and that would be kind of the end of it. When you do other more complex things with panes of glass and colored layers and smudges and water distortions, it gets increasingly complex. Ray tracing itself is not a new technology. This might sound really fancy, really high-end, but it's kind of not. We've had it since the 80s. The earliest example that I could see of ray tracing being used was in the 80s. However, it wasn't widely used or public until the 1990s. Now, if this is an old technology from the 90s, why does NVIDIA care about it? Why are you doing this video? Well, that's because previously it was so demanding and computationally intensive that it was reserved for cutscenes in video games only, or Hollywood CGI, or something really advanced like a simulation at NASA. Just something where you had a giant supercomputer to crunch it out and it was not even remotely real time. Real-time ray tracing is very, very new because it's always been considered too computationally intense to be worth the horsepower to do, or even possible in the case of many computers. So it was just beyond the reach of most video games. And that is what the NVIDIA 2000 series of graphics cards is mostly attempting to change. Of course, they've got, better specs and higher GPU, but it's mostly about the architecture that allows for a better version of ray tracing so that we can do real-time ray tracing in games. So you might want to ask me, well, how does this show up in my games? Well, I wanted to give you a few examples here from Battlefield of real-time ray tracing. Another good car example is that when I look into the passenger window, I can actually see some reflection of the power lines and street lines behind me. If you see that meshy grid-like thing, I can then look directly behind me and see exactly what that is on the map. I'm mostly going to do this in Rotterdam because the examples are easier here. You can see it's reflecting realistically off the puddles. And one of the more impressive RTX reflections is on this little trolley. You look in the glass and it almost looks like it's glitching out, like it's showing the building in front of me, but that's not a building in front of me, that's a train station. But when I turn around, you'll notice that the exact building is right there and reflecting in real time. That's not a sort of simple illusion, it's not a trick, it's not a lazy programming feature. This is a real-time light refraction courtesy of RTX physics. So when you're playing a video game that has ray tracing enabled, or Battlefield 5 if you have a 2000 series GPU, pretty much anything that emits light, like a fire, a gunshot, if they put lights on vehicles, if they have big explosions, or of course the sun, and has a smooth surface, will look more realistic. That's glass, that's the reflections on your eyeballs, that's the lenses, that's the metal on the gun. That's a lot of different things that will look better and more realistic. So not a lot of games currently support RTX because of this newness. Battlefield 5 does. However, NVIDIA has a sort of build it and they will come attitude. If they enable the technology, they feel that developers in the future, or probably currently right now, working to allow for ray tracing in their games to make it look better, because it's always an arms race with graphics in video games. You have more polygons, higher frame rate, higher resolution, better subsurface scattering, real-time ray tracing, volumetric fog, or something like that. You have to have some sort of hook to pull in PC gamers. And NVIDIA wants to start doing RTX now and develop this technology now so that hopefully in the future it can be a standard feature across all games, at least on PC. And I would actually not be surprised if they're working with console developers to see if we can get something on the next generation of Xbox and PlayStation consoles. Guys, that is all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful about ray tracing. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.